Hi guys! First, before it goes out my head, please ignore the fact that one, I'm soaked through. I've just come back from taking Jake for a walk and it is raining in England. And two, yes, I did change my hair colour. Before anyone notices or asks, it's black and it's by Live. And I love it. However, I don't know if it's permanent or not, I can't remember. But today, because it's been on my mind for a while, okay, more than a while, but a very long time, I thought I would do a video on the radar key. For those who don't know, this is a radar key. I did cover mine in tape because I don't like boring, but it's still a radar key. It usually has a light blue handle in the shape of a heart, much like mine is. The only difference with mine is I covered it in tape, in just basic sticky tape, because it was annoying me. I didn't like the boring, and it enables me to find it amongst all the rest of this stuff. Hello, Jake. You can't eat this. A radar key is specifically given, usually by a doctor or a specialist. It is for use in the disabled toilets, which I'm assuming are everywhere. Like, I don't know if other countries don't have them or do have them. But here in the UK we have them. Not everyone can use them. They are locked. You do actually have to have a radar key in order to use them. I have one because of a very specific condition I have, but I have friends who have them for their children. I have friends who have them because they're a carer and who they care for is in a wheelchair and needs the disabled toilet. They don't use them on their own. They never use them if they're just on their own, and they're not entitled to it. They use them with their person they're caring for, or with a disabled friend who's got one, or like me, if they're entitled to it themselves, they'll use them. I don't use mine all the time. Don't use mine every single time. I use mine only if and when it's absolutely necessary. If I see someone else who is potentially more of need than me to use it, like a person in a wheelchair who clearly needs, sorry, the dog's rolling around in my corner, who clearly needs more support than I do to use the bathroom, I will not use the radar key. I will not use it. I will not go into the disabled toilets. But if it is just me and it is just me on my own and I'm getting anxious, or I really desperately need to use it and I know I won't manage in the big stalls, like the normal everyday stalls, then I will use my radar key. I think most disabilities can get them. I do know that you have to get them from your doctor though. Like, I know that you can't just rock up and say you're disabled and get one. You do have to have proof of a disability that you need this kind of key to go to the disabled toilets because of your disability. Obviously, if you're a carer, it's the exact same stuff. You go to the doctor with the person rather than it being on your own. I'm actually just going to lock it up so that I am correct. Who needs that's a T, try again. I can't spell. I should have kept my glasses on before I'm doing this. Radar key. Sorry if you can hear that, it's the dog running around like a random annoying floofy thing because he got wet on his walk. And the page is taking forever to load. This is really unhelpful. Thank you. Before these were even used, other establishments, which I'm assuming are things like pubs and restaurants and leisure centres, so like swimming pools. I am very tired. I really should have done this first before going out, but hey, can't be helped. They used to lock them themselves, and then if a disabled person wanted to use the accessible toilet, they'd have to go to the person and ask for the key, like a member of staff, and ask for a key. And then they'd have to hand it back, I assume. But it was literally just because they wanted to make sure that the disabled people that needed them used them rather than someone just getting hold of them. And then it changed a little bit because most people who are disabled now using the key were able to do it discreetly, like we're able to not be as obvious with the fact that we're disabled and the fact we need to use the accessible toilet, because these keys do give us that access right, and we are able to do it without it being a huge issue, without it being, oh hey ho, I need to ask for the key, I need to do this, I need to do that, can you let us in? Because we're not having to have the, to some extent, embarrassment of going to someone's place or going to a restaurant or going to a pool or going to a pub, having to get up and go and ask for a disabled key, because we don't have that issue now, if that makes sense. Like, we don't have to be as embarrassed about our conditions. We don't have to be embarrassed over the fact that we need a disabled toilet, because we now have the ability to let ourselves in and to be able to say, look, this is fine, this is what I get it. There were a lot of times where, before we got the radar key, before I got one, and before many other people got them, or if there isn't a place with a radar key or an accessible toilet, you have issues, because you then have to wait in a line, occasionally, depending on where it is. You also then have to be able to control your condition or control how you're feeling in order to not have a potentially embarrassing moment. And you also then have to navigate a normal toilet stall where it's rather narrow, rather small, probably not the best for someone like me who has a physical disability and who needs support. It's also not the best for people who are just physically disabled and use a wheelchair and physically need the support to go to the bathroom, because it's just, you're expected to rush, essentially. You're expected to not take forever. You're expected to not take your time and to just get it over and done with and let the next person in. Especially if it's in a big shop and they've got a cafe and things, because, well, not everyone wants to be waiting around to go to the toilet. In fact, no one wants to wait around to just go to the toilet. They'd rather get in, do it, do their business, get out, wash their hands. Please tell me people wash their hands, because it's gross if you don't, and go out again. There's not really much of a patience limit when you're in the bathroom at all. Like, even if you're waiting in a queue, there is no patience limit. Everyone is waiting there. Everyone is waiting to the exact same thing, and everyone wants to get in and out as quick as possible. However, disabled people like myself who need physical support to be able to do just simple tasks do need that time, because especially if you're in a wheelchair or you're on crutches, it does take a while, because you have to also think about your mobility aids and whether you need someone in there to help you, and what you need in order to manage the world around you changes so much when you're in that little stall or in that queue waiting for that little stall, because not only are you expected to be quick and ready and done, you're also expected to have somewhat of a decorum and somewhat of a respect for others in there, which is weird because it's a toilet. And at the same time, that's really difficult to be speedy and quick when you already have enough issues just doing daily tasks. Like sitting there and being expected to be quick when some people generally just aren't quick on the loo. I know this is a weird thing to discuss, but I thought it's important that people know, that people understand that we aren't just choosing to be slow. We aren't just choosing to be fussy. We aren't just choosing to act like the way we do. In general, it is because we are not used, or we do not know how to manage the environment around us. So doing that also in a bathroom is quite difficult. The radar key, however, gives us the ability to essentially do all the reverse of that stuff. With the radar key, we're able to make the embarrassment littler, smaller, or less at least, because we're not having to wait in a long line and possibly have an accident because we can't hold. I mean, there are conditions that cause that issue. We're not having to wait in a line that could cause us more issues than anything else. And we're not having to have, especially people like me with autism, I don't like waiting in queues simply because they cause sensory overload, especially in a bathroom when we're waiting in the queue and we're having to sit there and try and be calm and not deal with things like how we'd normally deal with them. Like a normal bathroom that isn't a disabled toilet or an accessible toilet for a person with a disability is quite scary, and it's quite complicated, and it's quite overwhelming. Regardless of that person's disability, some people might find it easier to use a non-accessible toilet and to go into the bathroom and go into the stall and do it all themselves. Like, they may not need help, and that's the difference between someone who is physically disabled and someone who is probably just learning disabled, which I know sounds weird, but at the same time, it does very much single you out if it's noticeable that you need a radar key, which is often why, when they weren't accessible through your doctor, through your GP, through the hospital, and we had to go up to a member of staff and ask for the radar key to use the accessible toilet, a lot of people's hearts would sink, because that's a huge weight to carry. The fact that they feel like they're probably holding others up, the fact that they probably feel as though they shouldn't be wasting people's time, the fact that they are probably messing things around and not coping with things, the fact that they need help is also probably quite a big burden on them. I know it is for me. I get really frustrated when I need help to go to the bathroom. I mean, I know, because I'm aware of my conditions, I do know that it is because of my conditions, and I am accepting to some extent of that. However, there are people who don't understand their conditions, who don't know that they get the help because they have issues going to the bathroom. They would probably still feel like a burden. The only difference is they probably don't know that they're not a burden, that it's because of their condition, or just in general because they don't have the cognitive ability to connect the dots and realise, oh no, this is okay. Like, we have been given this by the doctor to use. We're okay, it's fine. You don't need to worry about it. I mean, the radar key itself didn't actually come into being until it was... Hang on, I'm reading again, I apologise. Until at least 1981. And that wasn't even like a little bit. That was simply because they realised, oh yeah, people do use these toilets, but they probably get embarrassed by using them. And this way, with a key, the staff and the janitors and the people that dealt with that facility are able to keep accessible toilets. They're able to keep accessible toilets clean and free for people with disabilities who require the key to get in. And they know, staff and janitors and the people who need them know that only disabled people can get the keys from their doctors. I mean, I am so used to the fact that people assume that I don't need the key. People assume that I don't have a disability. And I'm pretty sure that's similar for everyone whose disability is non-visible. even with Jake, my assistant's dog, my disability isn't always, like, it's not visible. He just is part of, essentially, Jake is part of my kit. Just as much as a radar key is part of my kit. For managing and dealing with my disability, it doesn't matter if no one else knows what the disability is. They don't need to know. People with disabilities don't go around advertising they're disabled. We really don't want to. We don't like it. I mean, a lot of us don't like it. We don't enjoy the fact we're disabled. Some people don't understand that they're disabled. So of course, going to the bathroom on their own is probably not something they're good at. But at the same time, their carers, their parents, friends, family need a way of making bathroom time and going to the loo as discreet and as patient and as easy as possible, much like a person who doesn't have a disability can go into a stall, can wait in a queue, can go to the toilet, wash their hands and go out again. We want the exact same process as non-disabled people get. The only difference is we need a bigger space because we may need to accommodate a chair, or we may need a different person in there with us to help us, or we may need to change products when we're in there. So we do need a bigger space, which is why a disabled accessible toilet is accessible to us. And we may need extra help, regardless of whether you think we've got a disability or not. That is none of your business. If we are entitled to a radar key, and our doctor prescribes, well not prescribes, but gives us a radar key because of our disability, we don't want people to pry into why we've got one. We don't necessarily know how to tell you why we've got one. And in all fairness, we've got one for a reason. And you shouldn't be trying to pry into that reason. You shouldn't try and constantly get one if you don't need one, because you have no idea how hard it is. You have no idea how difficult it may be for someone, especially someone with a non-visible disability, to go to the bathroom, to do all the business, to wash their hands, to wait in a queue, is for people. So I would much rather, and my life and everyone else's for the radar key would be so much easier if it wasn't denominated by people who assume that we don't need what we get because we don't look disabled. A radar key is designed for people who have both visible and non-visible disabilities. It enables us to be able to do the process that you lot take for granted, which is go to the toilet with less to no issues in a private space, like the door on the normal stall that locks. But it also means it also has advantages for us. We're able to have people in there to help if we need it. There's enough space for a wheelchair or a motorised scooter if we need it. There is space for crutches. There is space for someone to help us. There is space for someone to change us if necessary. It is literally just little advantages that you lot all take for granted because normal people who don't have disabilities can go to the normal stalls, do what they need to do and leave. We don't always have that privilege. So instead, I think, instead of people laughing and scoffing or asking a bazillion questions or trying to take these keys away from us or assume that we don't need the key and try and take it off us, people need to start being more understanding, people need to start being more calm, and people need to start understanding that not everyone is going to want to discuss why they have a key. I mean, if there's one thing you can take from my video today, it is please do not judge if you see someone who does not look disabled handling a radar key and going in the disabled or accessible toilet, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know what they look like inside themselves. You don't know why they need that key. Don't question it. Just be polite. Yeah, even if it means that you have to wait in a queue because you wanted to use the toilet but someone else used it. Remember that you don't need the radar because you don't need the accessible toilet. Be respectful of the fact that this person is clearly doing the exact same process as you are. The only difference is they're disabled. Please, if you can, just smile. Be kind. Don't be a complete jerk. And don't assume things, because you never know what someone else's body or thought process is. And I think that's literally all I've got to say on the matter. But to sum it up, radar key, used on accessible toilets, not used until 1981, only used for people who have non-visible and visible disabilities where they need help in the bathroom, and prescribed by a GP. You cannot and should not use them unless you need them. Bye guys!